What's going on, everybody? Y'all already know the vibes. And disclaimer, if I do sound a little nasally, I am sorry, but I'm pushing through for today's video, and that is going to be the top 5 AR players of all time. So this is going to exclude some players that maybe he ran a main AR just because they were kind of forced into it on one team, and then they were a flex or they were a sub on another team. This is the main AR roles. First up, guys, starting at number 5, and this is a player who I think still has an opportunity to move even further up the ranks. Out of all the players in this list, he is the newest or most recent main AR player, and it's none other than RCDS. RCDS is coming in at the number 5 spot for me. He basically started his career. Well, I know he played in Black Ops 3. And whatnot, but he really got his professional career going in Infinite Warfare with E United. I forget the team name that he was on before that, but E United with Silly, Gunless, and his twin brother Pristini is the team that was his breakout team. That was his breakout team. RCDS did win his first major event in Infinite Warfare in CWL Atlanta, which no one was really expecting at the time. But I think over the years, he has just continued to improve. He was a very, very, very good player in Infinite Warfare, very good main AR. But I still think at that time, no one was really looking at him compared to the Formals, the Octanes, the Slashers. I mean, even the Clays, like those were the players that when you're talking main ARs, that's who they were looking at, right? That's who they were talking about. And after Infinite Warfare, where he really had a lot of success, he didn't get the placings that he would definitely like to have gotten in World War II when he was teaming alongside Silly, Pristini, and Clay. I mean, they were a very solid team, don't get me wrong, in World War II, but they could just never get over that hump and really win a championship. Moving on to Black Ops 4, though, this is where RCDS cemented his spot, okay, as an elite elite assault rifle player, main AR player in the game. His team won 2 tournaments in Black Ops 4, the 2 biggest tournaments, might I add, playoffs and champs back-to-back. Those motherfuckers, man. They had a very successful year. But this is where he started getting the credit he deserves, because here's the thing, guys. It's a team game at the end of the day, okay? It is a team game. And it's the same thing in sports. It doesn't matter how good you are, okay? If you're really that good, you're going to have some success, right? And there's more than just the KD, right? Or the basic stats that go into it. There's the intangibles, right? The leadership, watching what they're doing on the map, their situational awareness, you could go down the list, how they affect chemistry, how they affect each other's attitudes, whatever the case may be. But RCDS had tremendous success, okay? So much where RCDS was on a team with Clayster, right? And he was the main AR because they knew that RCDS was, the more talented main AR player. And then you go into MW, guys, where he was on the Chicago Optic the first year of franchising. I don't really want to touch much on MW, man. It was just a clusterfuck of a year. I definitely don't think it was RCDS' best year by any means. But you could say that for a lot of players in that game with COVID, and having the transition just to online. But also, I just don't think RCDS was ever comfortable on that Chicago team. I don't. And then he found himself reuniting with the Tiny Terrors on FaZe in Cold War, which is currently where we're at. In Cold War, main ARs just don't seem to be as impactful as they have been in past titles, okay? They just don't. When you have Simp, Cell, and Abizi on the team, yeah, it's going to seem pretty easy. But this guy is the IGL on this FaZe team. He is this leader. He keeps everyone in check, everyone level-headed, making sure they're making the right plays for the overall success of the team. And this happens by the way, guys, every main AR player has been in a situation, whether they were, say, a star player. It's just because you're a main AR player on a team, you can be a star player on your team still. You could still have a lot of impact, but you're going to be put in a situation where you got to kind of take the back seat. You know, you don't need to be that guy that is going off, dropping you 40 points a game. You just don't need to be. But you need to find other areas where you can influence the game. And I think that's exactly what RC's is doing. Now, by no means is he having a horrible year either in Cold War. I can't put him any higher, but he also is the newest main AR on this list. So I think over time, he can maybe take over the next couple spots. But that brings me to talking about the number 4 main AR player of all time. And for me, it's got to be Octane, guys. It has to be. You know, Octane, the human turret is his nickname. I don't know if that's self-proclaimed or not. I don't know how we started with the human turret, but one of the best AR players of all time, one of the most talented AR players of all time. When we're talking about just raw gun skill and shot, there isn't many players in general that have a better shot than Octane. Guy came up in the scene in Advanced Warfare where he first got his shot. I know he bounced around a couple teams. He was on Envy. Back then, he didn't have much success, you know, but he broke into the scene. He was a new player. He needed to really find his footing, get an understanding, a good grasp of what playing professional Call of Duty is all about. You know, you can't just kill whore. You gotta do more to be successful, to really stand out. But he made enough of a name for himself in AW where he had a fantastic opportunity going into Black Ops 3, teaming on Rise. Okay, he was playing alongside Slack, Classic, and Looney, and at this time, these guys were veteran players with a lot of experience, players that were very successful. So this was his like first real opportunity, because in AW it was kind of second half of the year where he really got to start playing with, you know, experienced professional players, I guess I would say. But so he didn't have a full game's lifespan to do this. But Black Ops 3, it was different, and they had a lot of success. I think this is where Octane solidified himself, because Black Ops 3 was one of his best games. It was one of his best games, and he solidified. They only won one event in Black Ops 3, unless you count Totino's, which was the like invitational thing. Some people do, some people don't, I don't know. But they were a consistent top 4 team, a team that was always in contention to win a chip. Okay, and this is still in the Optic Dynasty era, guys. Okay, so they were able to compete with Optic. And after he kind of solidified himself in that conversation in Infinite Warfare, he ended up joining Luminosity, which was Saints, Slack, and Classic. And I think this is really where he stood out. I know they won one event in Infinite Warfare in Anaheim, but once again, similar to Black Ops 3, they were like a consistent top 4 team in the game. They were always there. Okay, they could always win a tournament. It didn't happen as often as they would have liked to, but they were there. And I think this was the first time in Octane's career for a substantial amount of time where he was considered the best AR player at the time. Okay, there were a couple months in Infinite Warfare where he was hands down the best AR player. And after that, I don't know if he just kind of kicked up. He had a new, you know, he had hit a new level, but he found like a new confidence in himself, you know, of like, yeah, I am the best. And he kept it going even in World War II. Now in this game, it was a little weird. I think similar to how RC's when he was on Chicago Optic, Octane just wasn't comfortable on this team. And, you know, his run on Optic Gaming was short-lived, but it wasn't pretty. But he bounced back. He bounced back in Black Ops 4. And this is the game that I think he was the best AR player in the game. I think this was his best game to date. We won 2 events on the 100 Thieves team. We went back-to-back at London and Anaheim. We also got second at COD Champs. You know, we were, besides the very beginning of the game's life cycle, we were like a top 3 team, top 4 team at the very worst. You know, realistically though, if you want to look at it, in terms of the whole year, it was us and United after Optic won in the beginning of the year. But Sam was a consistent like 1.2, 1.3. I still to this day, and this might be a little bit biased, I don't even know how you can call this bias, okay? Because I be cooking Sam's ugly ass. I be cooking his shit. He was the only AR player in that game that I swear could use the AR, the ICR, like a sub. And he was that talented where half the time, I feel like he did. I know in MW and Cold War, Sam hasn't had the greatest success. And there's a lot of reasons why. I'm not going to touch into it, but I think when you look at his career so far, you have to consider him one of the best main AR players in the game of all time. But moving on to number 3, guys, it is the other AR player that was on that Black Ops 4 100 Thieves team, and that is Slasher. Now, I know with RCDS and Octane, I was kind of talking about their careers, but I don't want to make this video too long. I'm just going to break it down. Slasher really broke out at the end of Ghost and an AW as that main AR player. And he has also been one of the most consistent main ARs of all time. Slasher has been consistently great across the board. It doesn't matter what game we're talking. It doesn't matter what game modes. Respawn, SND, whether it be boots, whether it be jetpacks, Slasher has been a phenomenal player. In Advanced Warfare, I teamed with him. They never won, but they were always a very good team. When I teamed with them, we got second back-to-back. You know, we had a third, a fourth in there. We were always there. But really, it was Black Ops 3 that he solidified himself in that conversation of best main AR players. It seemed like for a while there, Slasher was the only player who could compete with Formal. Because especially in this time period, Clay was kind of hit or miss, you know, depending on the game. And Clay is one of the all-time greats, you know, but this is when Formal was really hitting stride, and it was like Slasher was the only one who could compete for that title as the best main AR player. And there were times where he was the best. He had the title, the crown over Formal. He did win Black Ops 3 champs, Infinite Warfare. He had a very, I want to say, successful year. You know, they got second at COD champs in Infinite Warfare. They lost 2 best of 5s in the finals. You know, they were actually in a good spot to beat Optic, which is when Formal got his first, you know, Call of Duty championship. But like I said, in Black Ops 3, because I did miss out, they won 2 events and then got second. They were a consistent team, and Slasher was one of the main reasons for that, because he was able to compete and even beat Formal. You know, in World War II, Slasher started off to a rough start, but then once he joined Rise, they ended up winning back-to-back tournaments. They got second. They almost went for the three-peat. You know, I had to let my boy get the hands a little bit in that stage 2 playoffs and at Call of Duty champs. But once again, Slasher was, you know, he was there. He was one of the best players in the game, not even main ARs. Okay, and he was consistent. Like I said, it didn't matter from Black Ops 3 to Infinite Warfare to World War II. He was putting on consistently at a high level. And then moving on to number 2, guys, this is where it's tough. This is where it is tough, and I'm gonna get hate for this. I think I'm gonna get hate. I do, because if we were talking about just off of individual talent, you know, or like the highest peak of a main AR, I would have him at number 1. But with that being said, the number 2 main AR player of all time, I have Formal. And I probably will get a lot of hate on that. Like I said, this is just my take. I think hands down, Formal is one of the best players of all time. Top 5 player of all time. You know, you could say he is the best main AR player of all time. He has a shit ton of wins. You know, he really blew up in Call of Duty Ghosts. Me and him made the switch from Halo to Call of Duty at the same time. And he kind of never looked back. There was a long span where he was the best main AR player in the league. I think when we talk about peaks overall, individual event performances, there's none better than Formal. More specifically, if you want to go Infinite Warfare COD champs, I think that's the best performance ever by an individual at a LAN event. you know, at a major, at Call of Duty Champs. Unbelievably talented player. You know what you're getting from him. He plays at a very high level. I mean, he's a dog. You know, he has some of the most insane events of all time. He has one COD Champs win. You know, he's had a little bit of a rough couple years, I guess you could say. I don't want to say rough, but you know, once the whole Scump and him, whatever that beef was, and he went to LG, you know, he wasn't that great in World War II. Then you look at Black Ops 4. He was, you know, I don't think he was the best main AR player or really in the conversation in World War II or Black Ops 4. I think that's when there was a lot more Octane, RCDS in the conversation, slashers. And he's having a very good Cold War. He is. But for the majority of his career, he's been very comfortable and he's had a lot of success. You know, you can't take that away from him. Like I said, when it comes to talent and, you know, peak and runs, he's almost the most dominant main AR. That's the best way I can say it. And I think there's a good chance he can become number one, in my opinion. Maybe y'all have him number one already. It has nothing to do with him being on Optic. You know, the Optic phase rivalry enable hates Optic. No, I love all the players on Optic. Hex is my guy. They're all great guys. But this is just my opinion. I think Formal has a great chance to move up to number one. I think no matter what, it would be very hard for him to fall from second. No matter what, I think he will end number two or number one all time. But for number one, I have Jimmy Eubanks. Okay, I have Clay. I have Clay as the number one main AR of all time. And the reason why, Clay just always seems to get shit done. Now, Clay hasn't had, you know, as dominant of a run as Formal or maybe even Octane and Slasher and, you know, and you RCDS. Black Ops 2, I think he was unbelievable. Ghost, he was unbelievable. You know, AW, he was the best AR player. It was him and Formal basically the whole year. And then we had a little bit of a rough patch on phase with Infinite Warfare and Black Ops 3 and, you know, World War II. You go for it. Like he wasn't playing at the highest level, but he had some very high peaks. And even when he wasn't playing at his best, he was still playing at a very solid level, especially when we talk about main ARs. Okay. And he's had so many obstacles in his career. This guy has 3 rings. Okay. He has 3 Call of Duty championships. He has 1 with Denial in AW with JCap, Replays, and Attach. He has 1 with E United and Black Ops 4 with Simp, Abeezys, and Arcides. And he has 1 in MW with Crim, with Shotzi, with Illy, with Hugh. This guy, the reason why is not only his longevity, he makes shit happen. Like I said, he finds a way to win. Okay. And I know y'all are going to say it's his teammates, you know, whatnot. Clay is a huge reason why his teams have been successful. And I know he had that drought. We had that drought in phase where he hadn't won a chip in fucking like goddamn 7 years or something. But you have to give it up to him because he, no matter what situation he's put in, he bounces back. He is that leader, that IGL on his teams. He's had years where he's been phenomenal as a main AR. Even on the years where maybe he hasn't been in the conversation as the best, he is finding other ways to improve his team, to really influence his team's success. And I think the proof is there. He might not have as many total event wins as Formal, but Formal was on the greatest team of all time. Obviously, Formal was a very huge part of that with the Optic Dynasty. But Clay's been able to win with a magnitude of players, which not many other Call of Duty players can do that. And he's hitting kind of this second prime almost, you know, especially when you look at the last couple years. You look at Cold War. I know stage 2 just ended. He didn't have that great of a stage. Stage 1, you could say Clay was the best main AR in the game. This Subliners team that no one had high hopes for after Zuma announced that he had to step down. You know, this team, people weren't expecting them to be a threat, and he turned them into a fucking fantastic team. Now it's a whole, you know, there's a whole nother story talking about with Hydra bringing everything in, but when you just look at longevity, man, success, knowing what he brings to a team, I gotta put Jim. I have to put him number one, man. 3 chips, 3 Call of Duty championships, a shit ton of wins. He is also a top 5 Call of Duty player of all time. Now, I wouldn't say you're wrong if you guys had Formal over him, if you had Formal number 1 spot. I think those are the clear-cut top 2, though. I think those are the clear-cut top 2. Those are my top 5 AR players of all time, though, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, talk to me. What videos you want to see in the future? Let the kid know. You already know what the vibes are, baby. Until the next video, stay safe, stay healthy. I'm going to see y'all when I see y'all. Peace.